So the other day, I was showing quickly this practical television magazine from May 1951. I said if anybody's slightly interested, we can always go through it uh, on a bit of a video, which is what we're going to do. But what I decided to do was to expand that slightly. You have to appreciate I came from the television trade, 1978 to 1986, and then I went into business two-way radio. So my electronics background kind of started with television. And I did City and Guild's exam in black and white television. I never qualified in colour television. So, of course, none of you can trust me with a colour TV because I'm bound to get it wrong. I've not had a television since 1999. When it went digital, there was no reception here. I'm not bothered. I'm not paying for a TV licence. Stuff it all. So that is the last television magazine published. June 2008, and then it disappeared. And this is the first television published in April 1950. So that one from 51 wasn't far into it being published, and there was a big thing about building your own, and this is converting some ex-War Department indicator unit into a television, or in those days it was called a televisor, because television is like saying Hoover. Television is Baird's name for a televisor. So if we look at issue 1, there'd been a few issues before the war, and I have got those. I've printed these off that website. I'll put a link to that website, but I do actually own most of these magazines as original. By the time we got to 2006, I think I packed it in 2000. It was going down audio like DAT players and things like that. I just no interest in that. I'm no interest in liquid crystal. It's just these days it just seems to be power supplies that pack up and display inverters. So these frightfully middle-class looking people are sat watching this, no doubt 12-inch television, which is a drawing, and this bloke's smoking a pipe, and I presume this is mum, and I presume this is the daughter. April 1950, and they've got plenty of books in the bookcase, and they haven't got any clutter, so it's not real, is it? I can't open it fully because of the clutter on here. So the practical television policy, what is it going to do? I'll just see if we can widen this picture a bit without me getting in the way. That's probably about what we're going to do. TCC condensers, later to be called capacitors. Notice that cars still seem to be called a condenser. Why didn't they ever change to capacitor? The BBC television system. And this is Alexander Palace. Amplifier and shading. So that's a section which we all have to go through, is it? The central control room. Television principles. What's inside a receiver? So the extra high tension unit. Now that's on the power supply. So this tells me that this is a mains derived, even if it's RF derived, power supply. Because if they've got the power supply and the audio output on this chassis, and they haven't got it on this chassis, then it isn't being done with a line output transformer. Just for overseas viewers, in this country, the EHT on a CRT television is generated by a line output transformer. In other countries, that can be called a flyback transformer. We have different names. How the Emitron camera works. How my printer doesn't work. Yeah, it always misfeeds the last page. Always has done. Production of a television drama. Behind the scenes of a modern production. Artist drawing of the... Yeah. We had people living clutter-free houses. Important dates in television. Nipco invented the spinning disc. The Avo 7. Yes, we do have an Avo 7. We have an Avo 8. Industry standard test meters. Never did have that one though. Building the Viewmaster. This was not a television sponsored by this magazine, but a very popular television at the time to build. And it seems like it was on 2 chassis, and that's showing with a 12-inch tube, as in cathode ray tube. These are valves, that's a tube. Again, differences between America and the UK. Projection television. Well, that keeps coming and going, doesn't it? Look at this bundle of lot. These are a bundle of laughs, aren't they? Cecil McGivern, Director of Programmes, with a fag. SJ did a lot to be head of outside broadcast. I don't know if he's got a fag in that hand. Norman Collins, controller of television, managed to get him head and shoulders without a fag. Mrs. Mary Adams, head of television talks. She looks scary, doesn't she? Val Gilgood, head of drama with a fag. And Pat Hilliard, head of television light entertainment, photograph without a fag. So, television aerials, and of course you've got, these are Yagis. So you're going to have the driven element, reflector and director. And of course Wolsey were, are they still going for Ersin multi-core still going? Announcer Mary Malcolm describes her transfer from ordinary radio to television services. Standard frequency transmissions. 5 megs, 10 megs, 60 kilohertz. Experiments with the Miller time base. Choosing a receiver from 5-inch to a massive 15-inch. No, that's 15-inch. That's 75-inch cinema screen. I wouldn't be surprised that I'm out of touch, but we've got a monitor in the living room. I think it's 43-inch, and I think that's huge. Came out of a skip. It's a Samsung plasma thing. Right, 5-inch, and this is the viewing distances, etc. 3 modern TV consoles. The Alba T129, a Ferranti one with a 9-inch screen, and an Echo one. Underneath the dipole, this bloke was clearly into probably lighting and things in theatres and studios, and he certainly knows what he seems to be on about, and it's interesting read. Is 405 lines going to be the thing? And again, for overseas viewers, you have to appreciate we're on, was it 215 lines or something before This is going beyond the 30-line mechanical service experiment thing, but just before the war, 1937 to 1939, they were doing experimental broadcasts on 405 lines with the EMI system, and 205 or 215 lines, something like that, with the Baird system, which had a wet film intermediary. So, because the cameras were mechanical and couldn't really be moved, they were filming things on wet film and then putting it whilst still wet through a telecine, so it appeared like 5 minutes later, televised. But it wasn't the system. And at this point, they'd just bought Lime Grove's film studios, which sadly are now demolished. So, scanning circuits, tele news, inside and outside broadcast vehicle. Has he got a fag on? And then what you want, wait and see better with the Baird television. When we can get around to making them, we're going to make... Did Baird ever make television? I'm not talking about under Radio Rentals brand in the 70s, 80s and 90s, but I never saw any Baird televisions. And I know when I was in the trade 20 years later, I saw 405 line only sets before we went over to 625 lines on UHF, and I never saw any. And what's all this bull? Their portable needs no aerial. How's that going to work? I really can't think they'd come up with some wonderfully efficient way of doing it on some little printed circuit board before they'd been invented. So I think that's advertising bull. Because I'll tell you what, there's no reception where I live here. So we'll look at the last one. Getting rid of tellies. We're on full colour here. So lots of expensive instruments to buy. Alba launches SD and HD FreeSat boxes. Good for them. Samsung Boss in tax probe. Whoa. Letters. Donald Bullock did a commentary which was kind of amusing about customers and things who've really taken over from Les Laurie John's spot. Very amusing was Les. This really was after my time. Test case with a 42-inch LCD telly with a bad picture. Some faults which various dealers have had come in, which are always useful to look at, because they can end up being a stock fault. You know, we had a Sharp telly come in the 90s into the radio shop for a local. And it was bizarre. It's got CPU on the first side of the printed circuit board, and the line output transformer generating 25,000 volts on the other side of the printed circuit board. Well, guess what? CPU on one side and 25,000 volts the other doesn't mix well. And Sharp stuff was always so good, and I'm so sorry they're gone. Apart from making LCD actual panels. All those lovely products, ghetto blasters, the whole thing, lovely stuff. Video recorders that were really reliable. Oh, good grief! Profile of Michael Dramfield in the last copy. Oh yes, hello Michael. You're looking younger there, but we all are, aren't we now? Some of us are in our 60s. Michael's busily happy. His days of struggling home with sets on his bicycle crossbar have gone. Fantastic. That'll be a read later on. Review of the blue ESR meter kit. LCD training for young offenders. Recycling. I was never into long distance television, just like I'm not into long distance radio. I really can't be bothered. Oh, 65 miles is all I'm interested in talking. I'm probably the only radio I go, I'm getting out too well, I'll turn the power down to 100 milliwatts. Recruitment. What do they do? Don't know. Well, I've got to say that was more interesting than some of the ones from 6 years prior. I'd stopped taking it by this time. Very, very quick look at that one I dug out the other day, May 51. So we're only a year and a half into the magazine. And I think we'd got independent television coming on the horizon. So we're going to go from one channel to two in black and white 405 line. So using the 62 indicator unit, which is an ex-military item, with its VCR 97 tube, and turning it into a tele-energy circuit to what to do. How EHT or voltage multipliers work. That's all still relevant today, folks. How to mount your round picture tube. And what they want you to do, you get this webbing and then you stitch it there, and yeah, right. Building stabilised power supply. Now then, folks, you can build that today. It probably cost you about 250 quid to have the transformers made, but you could do it. We've exported components in 1950 at 5.3 million, compared with £4 million in 1949. Brazil spent 500,000 with us. Have you got those capacitors? Yeah, they've given them a Brazilian. A sound converter. Oh, so you what you're doing here is you're going to receive television sound, which is VHF band 1 back then. So you're talking about 40 odd megs, 51 megs, is it somewhere around there, into the IF of a normal super het receiver. So you tune that to a blank station and it would transmit to your broadcast radio. This is what a converter does. And then you'd receive something different on that. I built one for Radio 4 long wave, because not all radios by a long wave have got long wave on it. So there you are, build a converter. And it uses an EF50 valve. I think they were popular in wartime radar, so a lot on the surplus market. A Premier radio kit. The Miller time base. We'd had that in the previous thing, but this time for electrostatic tubes. Coloured solder. Super speed solder with a coloured rosin core was shown for the first time at the annual something exhibition. And its rosin's either red, blue, green or yellow. I think we'll have the yellow solder today. Building a compact 6-inch televisor, and it's going to cost you 15 quid. Yeah, right. And it's going to use a VCR 97 ex-military radar tube. You can have a green picture. Kermit the Frog will look alright on a green picture. Homemade transformers. Oh, you get some pretentious letters on this thing. A couple of studios have now been opened at Lime Grove, and so we've got a discussion on that. Out of the 5 studios, the Studio G, they've got 4 cameras, and there's a picture of the studio floor, and there's a picture of the control room. Again, the Iconos discussion, commentary, whatever. That will be interesting reading. Small ads. Television and the Child. An analysis of the effects of television programs on the younger generation. So, I've no doubt they're all going to come to a sticky end. Checking EHT. I don't think my picture is bright enough. How do you check it without buying an electrostatic voltmeter? And they say, well, if you put a load of 10 meg resistors together and use an ordinary meter and kill yourself. Yeah, which is better, superhet or straight? And of course we've still got this problem, haven't we? Because if you have a straight receiver, you're going to hear what's really on out there, and superhet, it's the sum of all the different IFs. So yeah, and there you go. Try it for free. Britain's best black filter screen. The new look for 10 and 6. 10 and 6 being 52.5 pence in real money. So there you go. Look at the last, the first, and something from 1951 television magazines. Not a lot to do with Citizens Band Radio at all, but thanks for watching.